Welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal channel. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. The Arsenal transfer market is about to get even more interesting and busier. Now, Arsenal have done 6 signings already, with a striker coming in, a centre-back, and a couple of midfielders as well. But we want to do more, and the market opportunities that Andre Bata and Mikel Arteta are saying we could take advantage of that. Now, the 3 players that Arsenal are really interested in, and this would actually solve some of our biggest problems when it comes to low blocks, mid blocks, and also just transitions. Make our transitions, better. That is Rodrigo, Xavi Simons, and Eberechi Eze. These 3 players are available at cut prices, and Arsenal are aware of that, and we're trying to sign them. But we're not trying to do all of them. It would be practically impossible for Arsenal to sign Rodrigo, Eze, and Xavi Simons. I'm not saying we can't. I'm saying it would be crazy, right? So Arsenal are gearing towards signing any 2 of these, and we're going to be discussing the pairs and trying to see what do Arsenal really need and what does each pair solve in terms of a problem at the club. Because when you look at a pair like maybe Eze and Xavi Simons, they might not have the individual skill set that Rodrigo has, and maybe you miss out on something like that. And when you look at Rodrigo and maybe Eze, then you miss out on the talent, and you miss out on the sheer raw entertainment of a player like Xavi Simons. So what should Arsenal do in terms of these players, in terms of just going for the pairs? We're going to be discussing that. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Big question: if you had to do just 2 of these players, if you could sign only 2, right? Not only 1, not all 3, but only 2, which ones would you go for? Now, for me, this is what I think. I think Arsenal this summer are very, very active to market opportunities. Mosquera is a market opportunity because, again, we looked at Dean Huijsen. That was a market opportunity. Great talent at 50 million, paid in installments. Great talent, market opportunity. We looked at that. We looked at Benjamin Sesko. We looked at Christian Mosquera, we looked at Christian Nogard, we looked at Kepa. All these have been market opportunities, players that have a lot to offer to the team in terms of just being old, and they bring the experience in Christian Nogard and Kepa, or players that are highly talented, very young, they're gonna be here for a long time, but you're getting them for a cut price, like Christian Mosquera, about 20 million euros or less than that. So it shows you that Arsenal are very alert to market opportunities, and this is a very different Arsenal team from the one we know under Edu and Richard Garlick. This is a very, very different Arsenal team. The approach that we're using now is so is so good, because I was asking in January, why didn't we go for Kvaratskhelia? And everyone was like, well, Arsenal didn't try. And we're like, why didn't Arsenal try? You've got to be alive and you've got to be active to those market opportunities. So when you think about these 3 players, why Arsenal are interested in them all of a sudden, it is not by coincidence, right? Xavi Simons and Eze are attacking midfielders, and we have been told that Arsenal are very, very active in the market for an attacking midfielder. Someone that can deputize Odegaard, but also someone that can provide something completely different in that left 8 position when you don't have Declan Rice playing there. So when you think about that, Rice out of there, and you put Eze or you put Xavi Simons on the other side, maybe you have a Martin Odegaard, you're getting a lot of quality to break down a low block that you wouldn't really break down with Odegaard and Rice like we saw last campaign. So we want an attacking midfielder. And then when you think about Rodrigo, it was Arsenal's agenda right from the start to sign a left winger. And we've looked at a couple of them: Anthony Gordon, Ademola Lookman, Nico Williams, and you can name them, etc., etc. And the whole point is Arsenal came in this market well prepared, but they're like, wait a minute, hold up. Let's see if any market opportunities are actually going to show up, and then we can actually pounce. Of course, you can't sign all of them. We can't sign all of them. We would like to sign all of them. We are Arsenal fans. We would like to have the best talents in the world, but we can't do all of them. So these are the reasons that Arsenal are going to look into in order to sign any of these players. These are the determinants, right? I think number 1 is going to be departures, because we've been told Arsenal will only sign or upgrade on the left wing if there is a departure there. That was by David Onstein, Jacob Benz, and a couple of other journalists as well. But Fabrizio said, and it seems certain, that Arsenal will do work on the left wing position. And if the Athletic, which are very, very credible, and David Ornstein, who's very credible, he's built a reputation around just reporting right information. If he's saying that a departure must happen, and Fabrizio is also very credible, and he's saying that an arrival will happen, it means that there is a guaranteed departure and there is a guaranteed arrival, because these are two of the top brands in news, especially transfers, that never get things wrong. They do get things wrong at times, but most of the time they get it right. So I think a departure will have to happen. A departure will happen for us to sign any of these two. And for me, it's likely to be Gabriel Martinelli. He's the one that nobody's talking about. He's the one that the news are not covering. But I won't be surprised if it is Gabriel Martinelli. That is determinant number one. Because if you lose Gabriel Martinelli, it gives you enough money to go and push for Rodrigo. Let's say you sell Gabriel Martinelli at 65 million euros. That gives you enough ground to go and bid like 90 million euros, or 85 million euros, or 88 million euros for Rodrigo, and you get him out of Real Madrid, right? If you sold Trossard, on the other hand, doesn't bring in a lot of money, and maybe you go for the cheaper deal, right? That's why I'm saying that it's really going to depend on departures. Martinelli goes, he's younger, and Arsenal look at him as the long-term left winger. So if he leaves, you bring in someone who's younger, but also someone you can see as the long-term left winger, right? So Rodrigo is that. But when Trossard leaves and Martinelli stays, you could bring someone, of course, Eze and Xavi Simons are also younger as well, but they will cost less, okay? You don't have to overspend to replace Trossard as compared to the way you would have to spend to replace Gabriel Martinelli. Then you've got prices. I think prices are going to be very key. Arsenal have spent a lot of money already this summer. And although we're ambitious and we want to go again and go again and go again, there is that policeman called PSR and FFP. They're going to be like, we are watching you. You're overspending. You're stepping your line. You're overstepping your limit, right? So Arsenal have got to look over the shoulder. Are we still okay in terms of PSR? Are we still okay financially, the books and everything? So I think the price is going to be very key. I won't be surprised if Arsenal end up with Xavi Simons and Eze, because those two could potentially cost 110 million euros. And Rodrigo alone, Madrid are asking for in excess of 100 million euros. So the prices are going to be very key, and so are the wages, right? And so are the wages. If Rodrigo is asking for 400k per week, and he's going to cost 88 million euros. And Xavi Simons maybe is asking for like 90k or 150k, and Eze is asking for 100k. The salary of Eze and Xavi Simons combined doesn't reach what Rodrigo is going to be earning. So again, Arsenal could be strategic in terms of finances, and they're like, okay, let's just go for the deals that make most sense in terms of finances, and then the manager will figure it out. But then there is also something that Mikel Arteta has been talking about for the whole of last season. The problem you want to solve, right? So, and this actually is interesting. It was very, very interesting for me when I was doing this, because I was trying to pair these players. I want to show you something, right? So what I've done is this. I've gone and paired these players into different players. Let's say Arsenal sign Rodrigo and Xavi Simons, right? That is a pair. Then you have Rodrigo and Eze, that's a pair. And then you have Eze and Xavi Simons, that is another pair as well. And for you to know the right pair that you want to bring in this summer, it's going to really depend on the problem that you want to solve. So if you want to solve speed, we're going to talk about it. But if you want to solve speed, let's say quicker transitions, you want quicker transitions, if you go for Xavi Simons, I would be like very skeptical. Now, Eze plays in a Crystal Palace team that are highly counter-attacking, the likes of Ismail Assar, Mateta, Eze as well. And Eze is not a very quick player, but the way he facilitates Crystal Palace is he's got that passing accuracy from any angle, from any distance, from any depth, from any wherever he is, he's gonna pick up that pass, right? So there you would definitely go for Eze and Rodrigo if you wanted speed, transitions, and everything. But if you wanted purely work to beat down a low block, right? And you have this very, very organized shape, and they've blocked off Saka, they've blocked off, let's say, Martinelli. You then go for a player like Xavi Simons and Eze. You go for that pair because they're highly intelligent footballers, midfielders. At their very core, they're midfielders. They can actually break down a low block, right? Like Kevin De Bruyne does it, like Bernardo Silva does it at Manchester City. So let's look at what players Arsenal could do depending on each and every problem. So let's say you want more goals, right? Let's start off with goals because last season goals were a problem at Arsenal. So you want more goals. You want players that can come in and just take their chances. I don't mean in terms of assists, right? Because assists will increase goals. But I'm saying chances have been created. You want players that are going to take those chances. When you look at their numbers, I think for me, this is the pair I would go for. And maybe I'm butchering this a little bit. Maybe I'm writing off Xavi Simons in terms of his clinical ability, in terms of his, the way he loves to be in the penalty area and the way he loves to score goals. But for me, if I was to sign players that I know, Arsenal need players that are going to increase the volume of goals. I'm going to go with Eberechi Eze, and I'm also going to go with Rodrigo. Rodrigo is naturally a good finisher, so you don't have to speak much about him. But with Eze, I think last season we saw a monster that had been, kind of chained by injuries for a long time. The dragon in him actually came out, and everybody was like, whoa, that is Eze, okay. And in the end, they have qualified for the UEFA Conference League, which is first was the Europa League, then they were demoted, and they've won the FA Cup. So if Arsenal really want to do goals, right, I think this is the pair. And we know that Mikel Arteta is a manager that really thinks, I want goals from different places. That is his mentality. That is his idea. That's his ideology. I want goals from different places. Rodrigo is a guaranteed goal scorer when he gets into goal scoring positions, and so is Eberechi Eze. Now, I like Xavi Simons. I like his finishing, but I think I would utilize him better in other roles than in terms of getting a lot of goals out of him. But he's a player that I can trust, can come in and even give you that Cole Palmer 22 goals a campaign, even without penalties, right? So let's think about assists, creativity. Which is the pair that you would go for in terms of assists? You just want to increase creativity. You just want to feed your number 9. For me, this is the pair. I don't know if I'm right about this. For me, these two, you have brought in a number 9, Gyokerez, and you want to feed your number 9. You want your number 9 to have an endless supply of chances. You already have Odegaard. You already have Saka. You already have Miles Lewis-Kelly, right? And Ethan Nwaneri already in the squad. If I want to increase the volume of creativity and the volume of chances created, these are the two I would go for. Eze, do I need to explain? Can I tell you about his numbers in the Premier League last season? 11 assists and about 10 goals. Like 22 goal involvements last campaign. But with Xavi Simons, he's played with Benjamin Sesko, and he's played with Lewis Openda. He's played with 9s in front of him, and he's done well. And even for the Netherlands, he plays with Memphis Depay, and he plays with Vavegos as well. And he's such a creative player. And I think that in terms of Arsenal facing problems with mid-blocks and low-blocks, you need brains that can just go, I can see a run, right? At times you need the striker to make a run, then the midfielder can track that run. Or at times you need the midfielder to think, and then the striker reacts. And I think that's what we don't have at Arsenal. We have a Martin Odegaard who will think, and the Kai will react a little bit later. Merino will react a little bit later. But we don't have players that do what Odegaard does. Think before the striker. And thinking before the striker at times means thinking before the defenders. You play that pass, and then all of a sudden, the question is about, does your striker react fast, or do the defenders react fast? If your striker reacts fast, he's through. It's as simple as that. So in terms of creativity, if Arsenal really want to add to the number of assists in the game, especially feed your number 9, I think Eze and Xavi Simons would be the ones. Now, there is transitions, right? There is transitions. in terms of like counter attacks, okay? Counter attacks. It's a game, let's say it's a game that is quite open, and you have a lot of chances to exploit spaces behind, like the PSG game. I think Arsenal had a chance in that game, but we didn't take our chances, right? We didn't exploit the areas that were there to be exploited. So in terms of counterattacks, this is the pair for me. I could be wrong about this again. I could be wrong about this, but this is the pair. Rodrigo is quick, and Eze, like I said, in that Crystal Palace setup, he's one of those players that just facilitate Ismail Assar, just facilitate, Munoz. By the time Munoz crosses that ball into the penalty area, Eze is there. Think about the FA Cup goal. Eze is always there. So in terms of transitions, both of these players are playing in highly transitional teams. Madrid, of course, we know what Madrid are. They are very, very deadly on the break. Mbappe, Rodrigo, and Vinicius, very, very deadly on the break. So these are the two I would go for in terms of increasing that ability for this team to do better transitions and score more goals from counter-attacking situations. Mid blocks, right? Again, this is the pair for me. Mid blocks. Because with mid blocks, you have Arsenal have a problem, and PSG did this to us as well. You have a team that sets up like far away from their box. They just set up far away from their box, but they hold a very, very strong line. And all you've got to do is play balls over that line, right? Balls over that line. Portugal did it against Spain, and Spain exploited it very well, but they didn't take their chances. Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal didn't take their chances, right? But for me, when it comes to mid blocks, teams that set up very far away from their goal, and that means that any ball in behind drops into space, and you have runners, lashing onto it. I think Rodrigo is that very, very alive option to do that with Saka on the other hand, and then you need a player that can play those balls through. That is Eze and Martin Odegaard. Low blocks. If we were to deal with low blocks, this is the one. This is the one. And I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about this, right? But I've gone with low blocks. I've gone with Xavi Simons and Eze. Now, the reason why I've eliminated Rodrigo is this. Rodrigo can at times be taken out of games the way you see Saka. He can be taken out of games the way you see Saka. And the problem with Rodrigo, he's got advantages as well. He can shift to the right, and then Saka shifts to the left, and the game changes, right? But he can be stopped, especially in very, very tight spaces. So low blocks are about flexibility in tight spaces. One Arsenal player that I remember was so good in tight spaces was Santi Cazorla. Very good in tight spaces. Jack Wilshere, very good in tight spaces as well. So you need players like that. And Arsenal don't have an abundance of that quality. And therefore, Eze and Xavi Simons, for me, would be the choices. Can pick a pass, can shoot from distance, because low blocks, again, you're going to need to shoot from distance. But in terms of maneuvering those tight spaces and just, the give and goes and give and goes and give and goes and give and goes, Eze is so good at that. So if you ask me, which one would I recommend Arsenal to do? I think it's Rodrigo Eze, because Eze has got a lot of Premier League credit in the bank. And then Rodrigo is it's like a super talent you don't want to leave on the market because he's so good, man. It's just so good.